Hello and welcome everyone to anubhavtrainings.com. Welcome to this demo session on SAP UI5 and Fiori training with SAP WebIDE. This is the latest module on our SAP UI5 and Fiori foundation course without any copy-paste of code. In this demo session, we will look at the key capabilities of SAP UI5. We will also talk about what is that you are going to learn as part of this course and what is our course goal. We will also discuss about evolution of SAP UI technology. So let's get started. So what is that we will be looking at in this course? You will be learning this course in 4 phases. The first phase of this course starts with installation of required development tools. We will be using SAP WebIDE development tool, which is a free tool as a trial edition available so that a developer can install this tool in their local system and can learn SAP UI5 and Fiori. So first we will start with installation of this development tool in this course. In the first phase of the course, we will look at the foundation for SAP UI5, which is based on the open technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. Now, let me tell you guys, those who come from the ABAP background, there is no need for you to know about these things in prior. We will be covering all the basics, including the JavaScript, as part of this course. Those who come from ABAP background or any other technical background, let me also clarify the myth that there is no need to learn any Java programming for this course. We will be using JavaScript, which is different from Java, and we will cover the JavaScript as part of this course for you. The second phase of this course, we will look at the core concepts of SAP UI5, which is nothing but your framework. We will learn about development techniques on model view controller architecture. We will learn the core concepts of UI5 SDK, the software development kit, and also talk about the end-to-end development strategy with SAP WebIDE tool. In the phase 3 of this course, I will explain you about Fiori user experience. We will learn how to build different variety of Fiori apps like master detail, work list, and we will learn the design principles along with the latest concepts of SAP Fiori. The latest concepts includes component.js, router, route match handler, and manifest.json. And finally, how do we expose the data from our ERP system? ERP system could be suite system, business suite, SAP ECC, or an SAP S/4HANA system. How do you expose this data to a Fiori application? We will do an end-to-end development of OData services, which includes all the create, read, update, and delete operations, and finally consuming them from the side of SAP Fiori to build an end-to-end Fiori application. Moving on, let's have a look at main agenda and how can you become an expert to develop end-to-end Fiori apps. As I mentioned, the highlights of this course, we will start with setting up our development tool, which is WebIDE. You will learn the flavors of SAP WebIDE. The second important thing to note that we will also learn development without any copy-paste of code. Majority of the tutorials which you would have seen on the internet, they all evolves around copy-pasting the code, which means the trainer will copy the code from some resource, paste it and show you the output, and just go through the code quickly and then run away. That's not our way of learning. We will write every single line of code, which may take a little time, but that will help you to understand meaning of every line. We will cover the latest concepts on SAP UI5, the end-to-end life cycle of an app starting from design, development, deployment, and final delivery of your Fiori app will be covered as part of this course. As I mentioned, there is no prerequisite to learn this course, and you will be able to develop your custom Fiori applications from scratch without anybody's support at the end of this course. And these productive Fiori applications can be delivered for your end users and will be integrated as part of the Launchpad. So, what is the evolution of SAP UI technology? With the emergence of SAP as one of the biggest ERP company on this planet, in 1992, SAP started with its first GUI-based interface called SAP GUI. From there, the SAP GUI is still in the maintenance mode, and there are minor features which are still being published as part of SAP GUI. With the enablement of web-based technologies, in around 2004, SAP has produced its first web technology announcement, which was SAP WebIDE Pro. So earlier in SAP GUI, we used to build DIN Pros, but with the web technologies, we are now building WebIDE Pros. And then SAP has also introduced business server pages, which was another web-based technologies for the SAP application development. That was mainly used to build SAP CRM product, or so-called CRM Web UI, was built on business server pages. Now, the main challenge which has occurred is when whole world was moving towards mobile devices like tablets, mobiles, small screen smartphones, the challenge has come that these technologies probably doesn't cater to the need of mobile users. They may not have native capabilities like camera integration, like integrating with barcode scanner and stuff like that. And also there was a strong need of open source based technology. And that's where in 2015, SAP has introduced the new UI technology called SAP UI5, which is responsive, which means the code which you write it at once and it can run on all the different devices at the same time. Same code can work. It is cross-browser, you can run the same code, and also cross-platform. These are all some key benefits you get with SAP UI5. And then in 2017, they have also harmonized those classical applications, be it WebIDE Pro and SAP GUI applications, to run on the browser and give you the same visual look and feel as SAP Fiori user experience gives. So this is the evolution of SAP UI technology. So what we understand from this slide is SAP UI5 and Fiori is the latest, currently ongoing UI technology to build SAP applications. So this is now more or less becoming standard for anybody who willing to start developing applications on SAP world. And that's why it's extremely important for all those who are working in the development of SAP world to learn this technology, so-called SAP UI5 and Fiori. So now let's move on and understand more in detail in this demo what is SAP UI5 and how can you get started your first program in this session. So what is SAP UI5? As I mentioned, SAP UI5 is the latest SAP's UI technology, but it is more than that. SAP UI5 is a framework to develop responsive web applications. So in this statement, we have used two important words. The first word is framework, and the second is responsive. So let's try and understand and elaborate what does a framework and what does a responsive means. So as I mentioned, framework is nothing but it's a collection of libraries. Okay, it's a collection of libraries. So you don't have to reinvent the whole wheel. Rather, you can reuse components which are built by SAP, and using those components, you can build your screens, you can build your application. And these collection of libraries, your components, are part of the framework, which are given to you out of the box. As a developer, I can reuse these components and I can build my own user interface, which look alike standard SAP applications. Now, what is a library? Library, in technical terms, is a collection of classes. So class, what is a class then? A class is a collection of methods, attributes, events, and aggregation. So in technical world, as you all have been aware of object-oriented world, we have a class in object-oriented world, which is nothing but a collection of objects. These objects contain methods, attributes, events, and aggregations. So methods are simply the behaviors, attributes are the properties of the object, events are the triggering points, and aggregations are the relationship with other classes. Of course, we will go more in detail as and when we progress in our course. As it's a demo session, I just wanted you guys to get comfortable with the basics and then build at the end of this day a simple UI5 app as part of our demo. So that was about a framework. Let's move and understand what is responsive app. So many of you have seen that there are a lot of web companies who are selling online products like Amazon, eBay. All these companies, they have websites. At the same time, they have apps as well. So websites are typically built using frameworks like Bootstrap or React.js. But on the other side, the apps are built using the Android-based technologies and using Java as a primary technology for Android. So using those technologies, they build applications. So at the end of the day, they have two separate code base. One is a website and one is the application. What if you want to develop an application and same code can run both as a website and also as an app? How can that be achieved? And that's what called a responsive web application. So an application which adapts itself according to the device you use is called responsive web application. Okay, that's what a responsive web app. So SAP UI5 is a very powerful framework which helps you to write the code once, and now you can run this code on any device, any browser, and any platform, be it Mac, be it Windows, be it Linux. You can run on any browser, any device, and any platform. That's the biggest benefit you get with SAP UI5. The another biggest benefit you get with UI5 is SAP UI5 is based on open standards like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQueries, which means these frameworks which you see, these different tools or applications you see, they are all free. They are based on open standard. So you really don't need an extra licensing to be paid when you build on top of these technologies, these open standards. So whole world is building on top of these standards. So we are more going closer to open world, open standards with the help of SAP UI5. Throughout this course, I will show you some of the amazing features which we will explore, which you will see a clear advantage and winning situation for SAP UI5 as compared to its successors. So when you want to start building a UI5 application, how do you get started typically? So as you all know, whenever we want to start any program developer, any development in our programming world, we always first decide the tool, basically where to code. The second thing which comes into the picture is the programming language, how to code. And the third thing is result or your application which is running. Okay, so that is something your output, where to run. So these are all the three things now we quickly understand. So the very first thing is tool. Where do you code? So to code SAP UI5, we use something called SAP WebIDE tool, which is available in two flavors. We will discuss that more in detail in our next session. But just understand this is just a tool, as the name suggests, IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and it's a web-based IDE, which runs in a web browser. So you don't need additional, a different type of a screen to run it. You simply can run this on the web browser. So that is the tool we're going to use. So I have already installed WebIDE. You can see on my screen. This is the first look of WebIDE, those who are seeing it the first time. This is how WebIDE looks like. I will explain you in the next chapter, in our next session, how to set up this in your computer. This will be covered as part of our course as a first step. So we are now clear where are we going to develop. The next thing is how are we going to develop? What is the code we're going to write? So for that, I'll quickly give you a small snippet to design your first screen. We will create something called a button. So we will need to know HTML basics, and we need to know the syntax to create a button or syntax to create any UI element with SAP UI5. The syntax goes like this, var, and remember it is case sensitive. So we say var, and we can put our object name, whatever object you want to create, equals to the library name dot the class name. As I mentioned already, there's a library and there's a class. So class is part of library. So you have to say library name and class name. And then what you're going to do is in this, you will write the curly braces and you will be writing all the properties. So all the properties you will be writing inside. This is the syntax to create your first control. Now also you need to understand basics of HTML. So in this HTML, remember, any HTML pages consist of a header and a body. The header will contain the initialization code for HTML, and body will contain the actual application code which you want to run. So as part of the initialization, we will be loading this framework first of all. As I mentioned, we start always with a framework. So in the header, we will be loading the framework. Once the framework is loaded, we will be initializing a class using this library, which is part of the framework. And then finally, this code, the syntax will be writing in the body to show the button. Just to take an example, I will be taking a button example, and we'll be writing a code to create a button on the screen. So this is going to be our second phase of development in this demo session. And then finally, we just need output, for which you just need a browser to show the result. So we're going to run in browser this responsive web application. So let's get it started with creation of our first program or first project with SAP UI5 with this knowledge. It's so easy. Let's go back and I can right click on this WebIDE tool. You can feel like it feels like you are working with SEAT. Those who are coming from ABAP world, you can see there is something called SEAT, which we use very often. So it feels like SEAT. As you can see on the left side, you have a panel where you can see all your programming objects, where you're writing all the programming objects on the left side. And on the right side, you will see all the code area. This is where you code on a programming object, right? Looks like a similar screen. Now I'm going to come back, create a new project. So I'll say new, and I'll create a new folder. And we can name this as, let's say, Anubhav Demo. So this is my project name. As you can see, the project has been created. I'm going to right click now and say new, and we'll create a new file. And we always start with an HTML file. Can name this file anything I like. For example, anubhav.html. Now, is it in a real time, real world, is it a good practice to name the file as Anubhav.html? Probably not. We start with index.html as a good naming practice. So in this course, we not just look at the concept of UI5, but we'll also look at the best practices you should follow when you're designing your application so that you do not get bad comments as part of your code reviews. So let's click on OK. And starts with a very simple HTML file. As I mentioned, an HTML file consists of body and header. So let's create an HTML file. It's basically based on tags. And then we will put a header and we'll put a body. Line by line, no copy paste of code. Now, as I mentioned, header includes loading code of framework. So we need to somehow load this UI5 framework as part of our header. How do we do that? So for that, I'm going to use a special tag in HTML called script tag. This is the tag you use to load a framework. And then you have to say, what is the source? Where do you want to load this framework from? So the framework which you want to load here is available as part of the internet. So from the internet, I'm going to load this. So here we have to give the URL to load this framework. So for now, I will just type in the URL directly. Okay, I will be doing that for you. And later point of time, I'll show you where do you get this URL from. This is what we will cover in our next unit called bootstrapping. So now we go and type https SAP UI5.hana.ondemand.com /resources /SAP-UI-core.js. So basically, this is the address of the framework from where we want to load the framework and initialize the same. Now, together with this framework, I want to also inform the SAP UI5 to give me the library. And that I will do in the next statement by SAP UI data UI libs library. And I want to load sap.m, which is SAP's mobile library for the UI controls. Along with that, I would like to also load SAP data UI theme, or sorry, it should be data SAP UI theme equals to SAP underscore Bleeze theme. Or maybe I would like to load the classical blue crystal theme. So you can exactly see the similar look and feel. And of course, there is also correction here. Just quickly correct that one. Nice. So this is all my initialization of SAP UI5 framework as part of my step 1. So we've written header, body, and also loaded SAP UI5 framework from the internet. I can test this right away by cross-checking if it brings me a blue color screen or not. For that, I also have to just mention a classification property at the body level called SAP UI body. So what it does, it will basically catch the theme which is mentioned over here for my UI5 screen body. So as an execution, when you run this, you should see a blue color screen that indicates that your UI5 framework has been successfully loaded. Let's execute from here, run button. And as you see, it will launch the browser automatically. And now you see this light blue color screen, which is an evidence that the UI5 framework has been loaded. As a next step, now what we're going to do is we go back and follow the syntax to create a button control. As I mentioned, we use library name and the class name to create a button object. So I go back to the header again. We write another script tag in HTML to create a button object. So I'll say OButton, new sap.m. As I mentioned, this is the library. We are loaded. And now I can say, I want to create a button on the screen. And I will just put curly braces and go ahead and put the text property for the button. Now you may be wondering, Anubhav, how do you know that there's a text property for the button class? So this is something we will see in chapter number 7 as part of our course, and the topic is named as SAP UI5 SDK. We will discuss that in that chapter. However, right now just assume there's a text property for this class. I'm going to give that value and I will say click me. And now what I will do is I'll just have to save. What will happen now if you try to go back and refresh, you will not yet see the button on the UI. The reason being, this button is not yet placed in the body. As I mentioned, user can only see what you put in the body of the HTML. So what I'll do is I'll just create a placeholder in the HTML body, and I'm going to name this placeholder, say, demo. And what I'll do is I will say, hey, Can you please place this button object, which I've created from the button class, as part of this demo element which I've created in the body? So for that, I just call a method called place at, and please place it at demo. As a result of that, what will happen? System is going to place my button as part of this demo element, which is inside the body. And ultimately, what I would get as a result is my button on the screen. So let's go back. Don't forget to save this. You see, I didn't save it yet. Let's save, go back and refresh. And voila, you see, you've got your first button on the screen. So easy when you do step by step, line by line, no copy paste of code. Now, as part of next step, right now when I click, nothing happens. So what I want to do is I want to launch anubhavtrainings.com when I click on the button. So for that, we need to rely on creating an event. So we say press, this is my event name, and I will attach a function quickly to write my logic to load the Anubhav Trainings website on click of the button. So whenever press happens on the button control, we want to say window.open, and I'm going to give a web address as www.anubhavtrainings.com. Maybe we want to take you to the UI5 code page. So SAP UI5 and Fiori training. So that's my course page. I wanted to take you to directly to the course page. Awesome. Let's save this up. Come back to the application. Don't forget to refresh, reload. And now what we will see, if I click once again on the button, it is navigating to us to anubhavtrainings.com course page on SAP UI5. So that was a quick demo on basics and creating our first UI5 application in just 30 minutes as a starting point. I'm sure many of you have questions regarding how to get this tool in my computer, or what is this button class? Can I see the documentation? Where can we find the documentation for complete development? And how do we get started? And where do you get these properties and events from? And all these basics, and what is even HTML from scratch, we will be covering starting our next class from tomorrow. So I hope you all have enjoyed this demo session, and I will see you in the next class. If you're willing to join and subscribe our course, don't forget to send an email on install.abap@gmail.com. You can also visit us on anubhavtrainings.com, and we will see you in the next session. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye.